All right, at this point, the objective to get you to better understand the depth of Rev 12 and the birth is to see historically how we go from this, even the origination for the whole occult philosophy of Ishtar. So, how we go from this, the women being seen as the sacred cows to produce their descendancy. We go from this and we go to that. And this is now Hathor, a personification of this ancient sacred feminine cow concept. And notice how she accompanies the pharaoh. Now, the pharaoh, of course, is of royal blood. Now, where does this royal blood trace itself from? It traces itself back from the ancient gods. And even these gods who took unto themselves the daughters of men. So, from the root to the fruit and everything in between can be seen how these fertility death goddesses, seen as cows, sacred cows, we can see where they get their origination from. And you can kind of see how the creativity of the mind of man evolves and, in a sense, sculpts its philosophies. Now, partly due to the duality of the understanding of Ishtar as it is symbolized from this event, is because one portion of humanity celebrated the union of these daughters of men with the sons of God, and that would be who the elites are, and that's who the elites were, because they believed that they were specially chosen for this offerage of this right to bear rule. And then the other portion of humanity who understood about the rebellion and who realized what these beings were doing, they rejected it. Therefore, these women were seen as whores, but to the portion that were subjected to this temptation and accepted it, they saw themselves as virgins that were selected for a divine purpose to fulfill that descendancy out on our world. You get me? So if you know Ishtar is both seen as life and death, it originally originates in this duality from the dual perceptions of the peoples that were on the dark side and the peoples that were on the light side. Those that did not succumb to the rebellion of the serpent and the sophistries of his temptation basically saw what was happening to humanity and realized that these women were being seen as lustful objects, which they're still portrayed to today with that symbolage of the Playboy bunny, which, you know, the bunny is a symbol for Ishtar, and you can see played out in the ripple of reality the very same concepts, that these women are just simply seen as objects of lust. And as you know, that they chose all of those that they thought were fair. So if you read further into it and you look into the other ancient cultures, you can see that there was a huge lust factor that's recorded, and the purpose of what had even tempted the sons of God to commit this act. So Ishtar, having a dualistic nature, can easily be traced to the true historical context of this event and where it all originates from. So we go from this, and then it is evolved, of course, throughout these cultures that have their descendancy supposedly from this royal line, which is really of the fallen, and then they celebrate it. So think about that, you know? I mean, really, really ponder the heavy significance of how you can really simplify the complexity of this understanding of Ishtar. And we're going to even do it further. So now, kind of just briefly think about Babylon Now, the manifestation of Babylon is given a feminine quality. Now, this portion of Babylon that we're trapped in, the materialism, is the feminine quality of basically the ancient event tempting of our females, just like I've said before, you know, gifts and jewelry, perfumes, and makeup are things that are still to this day that are gifted to women to win their hearts. Okay, not necessarily it's a bad thing, but you can see the manifestation of commercial Babylon as this whore that rideth the beast is, depicted, being decked with all of this lavishness and luxury. Now, as I told you, the plan is to not actually kill off Ishtar itself, just to kill off the portion of her that is perceived as the harlot, of which is a product of their very own enticement. So this is how we understand that movie that I did the code breakdown on, Night of the Comet. It's where they had that character, Samantha, they called her Sam, which is really code for Uncle Sam, the USA, and she was always wearing red, white, and blue. If you remember in that movie, the key was that they didn't actually kill her, but they knocked her out. And then that's where you get the significance with the left hook. Sandy, that was to hit the east coast of the United States, left hook, knockout. And then Coney, Kony, knockout, New York. And then, of course, we know that the Anunnaki, knocking up the daughters of men. Once again, the daughters of men were seen as knockouts. They were hot. A hot person is termed a knockout, basically, in some histories of our culture. All of this stuff comes together, okay? So the plan is, with this millstone now, is to officially knock out the United States, more or less the peoples within the United States, to put them out so that this rearrangement of the system can take place. And then as they reemerge, the survivors themselves, or the peoples that come to their senses after this confusion and chaos has taken place, basically they're going to have no hope. They're going to find themselves basically bound within the system, this New World Order that has sprung up around them. All right, so this knockout blow is all about creating a level of confusion to where they can disappear to their Shinar moon and then leave us here to be subjected to the military factions that will really be going underneath the ground. These military factions go underneath the ground while the remnant, the elect, go to the moon. All right, so it's really the same two constituents once again, but it's just the military portion that are elected to do this service for the remnant. And then the military is supposed to gather us up, as you all know, associated with these FEMA camps. But it goes much deeper than that, guys. But, have no fear, because I tell you, Jesus Christ said he's going to shorten these days. And if you understand some of the perspectives of the prophecy in Hosea, it even describes that they will not spend the time on the moon that they think they are. It says they will not stay long in the place of breaking forth of children. And then it records another verse that says, the Lord is going to bring them down from their high nest. And then once again, they'll be mixed amongst the Gentiles. Well, they're going to be mixed among the very Gentiles that they sought to destroy. And this is where they're going to begin to suffer some of the wrath of the peoples themselves. Now, I can't honestly tell you how all that's going to play out, but I can tell you in perspective that those are the sequence of events that you can see in prophecy. All right. I do really need to stress the fact that you should do the research upon Ishtar, showing you that it is not one deity, that it is literally hundreds of cultural interpretations of the sacred feminine deity, which is most commonly known in ancient Babylon as Ishtar. So, if we can perceive now that the those bloodline royalty that they believe that they come from. They believe they come from these women that were selected. If you can put this now, the cows, into perspective with childbirth, then we can move forward into the understanding of Nekbet and Wadjet, that are going to be the two ladies that we saw in Zechariah 5, that are going to be further symbolized as the two great wings of the eagle in Revelation chapter 12 that lifts that woman up. Now that woman, you have to keep in perspective, is Israel. But Israel is being given that personification of Ishtar because in reality it's that royal blood. And then Ishtar is representing where this royal blood comes from. So this fallen, or these fallen nations of Israel being led by Ephraim, you know, all associated with these mystery schools, these secret societies, are in representation of Ishtar herself, because it's the whole descendancy, as they believe themselves, that have culminated to this final consummation to where they themselves now have completed the work to produce the ultimate, which is this Shiloh, or in other words, the Antichrist. So you need to be able to separate the difference between how Rev.12 cites the woman itself, and then that there's two more women that are associated with the wings of a stork, and then further the wings of a great eagle. So really we have a triune, three-grouping feminine association right here. But they're still all going to be connected, but you need to see how this is going to play out, because it's going to begin to make a connection between the distinction between the actual crafts that this remnant, the tear, is flying up in. And then if you've been keeping up with what basically modern technology is with this, this space flight, this commercial space flight industry that's sprung up, one of the names of the craft is called the Virgin Galactic. Virgin Galactic. Now remember, in their perspective, this Israel personification is supposed to be this virgin that hasn't been defiled by women and all that stuff, just like you read in Revelation. But the perspective of the women that they haven't been defiled with is the whore concept of Ishtar, when in all actuality they're the very product of it itself. So fulfilling the virgin idea of this side of Ishtar that they believe themselves are connected to, now you see that they portray that in this commercial space flight in these vehicles that's going to literally bring them to that location. The Virgin Galactic is the perfect fractal manifestation of the expression of how they see Ishtar as this virgin, as it's associated with Revelation chapter 12 and the sign of Virgo. In other words, the virgin. Just like I told you, that split between the duality of the two concepts of how this is being seen from our world. And then some can see the perspective that, yeah, these women are being used and that this is a duping and they're trying to take over our dominion. And then if we would have just had some patience, that we ourselves would have grown with this spiritual potential that the Spirit has duped us into believing that we were all going to get by practicing his occult philosophies, when in all reality he's used everyone for himself to grow into the spirit potential to be the God-man in the flesh that is going to be a disappointment to so many of these people that have believed they've worked to bring him in. And many of them still don't even believe that's what they're doing. They think it's just making them gods, and that's all a misconception of what people believe about the Antichrist as it's been taught about the church. Well, if you're that, you got a surprise coming. So the two great wings of the stork now will replicate the imagery that you see manifested into our reality of the ship or the commercial industry naming its ships Virgin Galactic. Now, the Virgin being this remnant used to produce this supposed golden child is now in perfect assemblage with the women having the wings of a stork. And as I said, it's these two women that will be these two ladies that will fulfill themselves as Nekbet and Wadjet. All right, so if you can go from the birthing cows now to the understanding of Hathor, that fulfills itself with Ishtar, that now fulfills itself with fallen Israel, that's been chosen by this fallen faction to eventually do the great work to produce this, you'll now be able to go from the cow as the sacred feminine and the birthing. Now you'll be able to move forward into the symbolage where we connect it to the stork, vulture, eagle, this mother aspect that's going to be the protector of this sacred pharaoh infant that's being born, supposedly unto the world. So the protectors now in ancient Egypt mysticism of the royal pharaoh and even the royal descendancy itself, the birthing, even considered the mother of mothers, even called the Mu, is Nekhbet. So this is why we see that the Bible in Zechariah 5 and Revelation 12 is completely outlining the concepts of Ephraim's Egyptian mysticism and displaying perfectly their philosophy concerning the protection of this supposed royal remnant by Nekhbet and Wadjet and the symbolism of the stork's wings or the two great wings of the eagle. And I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you how that fits in. But I need you to see as deep as you can possibly see into this so that you can fully understand that these concepts are not frivolous, that this stuff is real. So we move from the women being seen as the cows, the sacred cows that evolve eventually into the conceptual deity forms of Hathor and even Ishtar associated with the cow, Nekhbet associated with the great white cow, even as it simultaneously symbolized as a vulture. Did you hear that? That Nekhbet is considered the great white cow, this great mother, and then that that the cow goes moo, and then you'll see that Nekhbet in mother is termed Mu, M-U. And then this is where we get Moo Moo that you associate with cow that has further evolved into Ma, Ma, that we now just quite plainly shorten to Mom. And it all comes from this. This is where we get it. So Nekhbet's chief epitaph is Mother of Mothers. And now you can see why these two women, the two ladies in Zechariah 5 given the wings of a stork, are associated with the protection of the essence of this supposed golden child, this golden calf, this serpent king, this personification of the ultimate Egyptian pharaoh that will be produced into this material world by its supposed chosen children. All right? So, I know, guys, I know. Let me go ahead and read something here to you that will kind of quickly clear the fog a little bit and all the stuff that I said. Let me just read here. Ishtar, a Mesopotamian goddess of fertility and war. In other words, life and death. In her role as goddess of fertility, Ishtar was associated with Tammuz, the god of vegetation. Ishtar was sometimes identified with the planet Venus and was designated mistress of the heaven in the Amarna tablets. The goddess is perhaps the queen of heaven of Jeremiah, and as you can read all that for yourself. So you're going to see that this Tammuz thing is perfectly associated with the Osiris and the Isis thing. As I said, it's just a layering and retelling of the same events. Now, I want you to realize right there that we get the key connection here for Ishtar symbolage of Venus, and then like I showed you on the Venus figurine back here, right? These are called Venus figurines. And then as I said, you can even Google images of the goddess Ishtar cupping her breasts just like this. So this is exactly the full fractal connection of where this Ishtar concepts come from. Perfect in accord. All right, now let me take a little time here to maybe read some minds for a moment. And You see, Jesus Christ. And it's going to come down to a little bit of this understanding of these mythologies that precede Jesus Christ, his death, and his resurrection. That you should understand, at least from the naysayers' point of view that don't believe in Jesus, that will even try to claim that he was never even real, that it's just a retelling of earlier events, such as the life, death, and resurrection of Osiris and Tammuz. All right. Now, here's the reason. Here's the reason why we have cultural interpretations of this king that has overcome mortal life by some sort of struggle and been resurrected. It's because all of this was already foreknown to happen on this world, even by the planetary prince, before there was ever anything that you can consider as man walking upon this earth. It's all known. There is a plan that unfolds on these evolutionary worlds, these inhabited worlds of time and space. It is destined for an eternal sun to manifest on these worlds of time and space. It just so happens that our world, Earth, was chosen by the supreme manifestation of the eternal Son himself, the express image of the Father in paradise. Now, so many people real quick are confused. I'm going to try to clear something else up too. So many people are confused here about how Jesus and the Father can be one and the same. It's simple, guys. It's simple. The Father is the fullness of the perfection of the personality of the Supreme Being. It's triune, in which we know within this expression of the Trinity, we have the female personality manifestation, which is still imparted upon the creations where we get male and female. So there's an origination from the first source and center, the Supreme Being, which is more or less called the Father because the Father association is connected to the seeding. And before you can have the birthing from the egg, you must have the seeding from the Father. So the seeding is the real understanding of the ideology being given the supreme deity as a masculine form. But in reality, it's not masculine in a sexual sense between male and female. That's where so many people get caught up. It's really not necessarily connected in any way that we see it between a masculine, male, and feminine concept in the physical. So people get confused on that and they want to deny God because people say that it's the Father, but in reality you just need to see that this Father figuration has been applied to it because it's the seeding, the original source of the offspring of creation, the first source and center. So if we have, let me think about something here for a moment where I was. If we have, so Jesus Christ himself being what the Bible clarifies in the book of Hebrews is being toned down for a period of time, basically so that this creator could experience his creation, could live within his very design in a sense. Test it out, make sure that everything was working properly and that everything that he had given this temple body to, that all the beings had everything that they needed in potential to overcome their materially limited environment, based upon the spiritual will that was put inside this material body that you could liken to your spirit or your personality, that is still separate from your soul. And this is kind of open us up to the philosophy of ancient Egypt as it describes the Ka and the Ba, one being the spirit personification of your personality, and then the other being the vessel for that personality to fuse to, the actual soul that is going to be always eternal, whether you fuse with it or not. So, Jesus Christ is the express image of the Father. He's not some other creator son that the Bible quotes as other morning stars. Just as you know that there are other sons equated, Lucifer, Satan, and the devil are considered high sons of God also, just like these most highs that we quoted in Ecclesiastes, to where there are multiple levels of these most highs, and then it even clarifies that there are those that are higher than they. The most highs are plural, and then the most highs are used to rule in the affairs of men, until Jesus Christ had completed this bestowal on this world and then received his authority and his inheritance and his right to rule by actually overcoming it as one of the creatures of the realm. So, my point is that Jesus is the Father that has just been toned down so that mankind could experience his presence based upon the limited level of experience that mankind had possessed in his material form. If you can't receive all that the Father is, you're unable to. You don't have yet that capacity. That's what eternity's for. Eternity grows your progressive experience so that you can receive more and more and more of the bounty of the fullness of the infinity and the eternity of the Father. So Jesus Christ, the Father in the flesh, has lowered himself to where mankind could actually experience him. And then he could actually experience what mankind is experiencing. And then he could overcome it to show the way how it could be done. So if taken to this equation here, if life is eternal, and there's been no true beginning, at least from our conception, to what this creation is. So there's been millions and billions and even trillions of years upon years, even light years of time before us, then of course created beings that have had to experience that time. Because the only way time can be is if someone is actually there to experience it. Time is an existential from your current dimensional perception, your current dimensional observation. As your dimensional observation increases, time decreases by that exact amount. So time itself is not necessarily felt by the Supreme, but it is felt by those on the periphery of the Supreme. As they pull themselves towards the infinity of all, the less time you feel and experience as a handicap of separations between events. So as you move further towards the Supreme of all, you can begin to experience that Supreme of all, which you can't do now because you don't have yet that capacity to experience it. You're still in the periphery. So if there's already been millions and trillions and billions of souls that have overcome the mortal struggle of time and space, have accepted the potential, have entered into paradise after that righteous judgment, and are now on their journey to the center of all things, the perfection of all things, even the perfection of themselves, then you would have to realize that the Father would have to be there to maintain all that. There was a journey. There is an exodus, a spiritual exodus that has been taking place over an eternity of eternities that is all moving towards him in the spiritual abode. So he has to maintain his residence there. Therefore, he divests a portion of himself that we call the eternal Son, Jesus Christ, lowers himself down by his wisdom, and then delivers himself as the gift to the mortals of time and space in the realm in which they've been created in, so they can experience that personality manifestation of the Father with their own current faculties of observation in the material realm. You understand that? I hope you do. I really do. And I'm sure that many of you do. That's real talk. That's real talk. You have to put the equation into perspective of the entirety of the whole. The entirety of the whole. Trillions and billions, even from trillions and billions of different systems and worlds and galactics, all a part of the super universe, have all been living and dying before us There's a promise that's been given to each and every one of them if they would accept it. And all of them are on a journey, and then billions and untold numbers. The Father is there, and he must always maintain his central location at the entirety of the whole. Therefore, portions, divine, triune manifestations of himself are lowered to the different dimensional creations that can receive it, being chemical, electrical, biological, and then those manifestations united on all their many myriads of creation. All of them are given equational personifications that are equatable to their observation of the Father of all that is through his wisdom. So understand that to receive all that is, you yourself must journey through and experience and overcome all that is. The devil has fostered a huge lie on you that you believe that this little step that we have all gone through, basically the history of this world, is going to bring you to your perfection in the material. It's just the first step. But incredibly enough, we're all fortunate who are going to overcome this sophistry with our faith on this first level. It's going to make us what the Bible would call much more able and glorified on the other side than those who don't. So I've got a message for those people that think that they need to be deceptive in their pursuit of this so-called divinity, that this glory that you're hoping to achieve in the material is going to be the exact same thing that you lose on the next level in the spiritual. And guess what? The people that you're all fighting against now that truly are holding on to this promise with patience, the very patience of the saint, to be glorified on the other side if they can just maintain their faith, that these are the ones that are truly glorified. These are the ones. But yet, you will still be judged righteously. You still will. And you still will be given the opportunity to start your journey correctly. And this time, on that mansion world, you will not have this, and you won't be physical. You will be what is recognized as the transfiguration of Jesus as he returned. He was still able to be seen by mortal eyes. He still had a form. So, in other words, the material life that we live now is more material than spiritual. Well, on the next level, it's more spiritual than material, but it still maintains a level of materiality. There's still going to be, you should understand that spiritual beings are created to dwell on material worlds, just like the planetary prince is a spiritual being, but he is the prince over a material world. Get it? The material worlds of time and space are the actual created tapestry for the personalities of the children, the high spirit sons and daughters of the Father himself, to enact their divinity over, to enact their deity prerogative. They have to have something to manage to enact the reason for them being divine. They don't have all that potential for nothing, and then that's what these created worlds of time and space are for. And then that's why there are infinite myriads of these creations that have infinite myriads of these most highs, these high spirit sons, these morning stars, these evening stars, these Dianos, these Avanos, these Seraphim, these Cherubim, and the list goes on of infinite myriads of spirit beings that are appointed to the ministry, watch care, management, and overseeing of these material dominions. But of course, some of them rebelled. And then now they seek to take the very thing that we ourselves have earned rightly, just as Jesus Christ did by overcoming it. We've overcome it throughout our evolutionary progress, the very evolutionary struggle from striving from the smallest of particulates to become more and more and more the potential, the creature that was promised to us, until we stand here now as the evolved human being that has the fullness of the potential, that has completely overcome its limited material environment to realize not only the quantity of the thing, but now the quality of the thing.